Hello, welcome to the channel. This is going to be a new video series that I'm going to call Surfing the Old Web. The first site, let's go into it. Saint Ignace. I am a saint in the Church of Emacs. So I already took a look at this. Look at this guy. He's like the 2000 Meat Canyon. This is like the 2002 reformed Meat Canyon before he got tattoos. So I think this guy is a literal saint, you guys. I think he's actually made his own church in 2000, and Richard Stallman in 2000. I think he actually is, let's see. Sainthood in the Church of Emacs requires living a life of purity. This does not require celibacy. A sigh of relief is heard. Being holy in our church means exercising whatever evil proprietary operating systems have possessed computers that are under your control or set up your regular use, installing a holy, i.e. holy, free operating system. We also have a hymn. Should we listen to the song? Okay. This guy's kind of trolling, I think, but very creepy. Oh, there he is. You may have heard or read critical statements about me. Please make up your own mind. Join a protest. We are currently politicizing No King's protest for March 28th. It's inevitable. Okay, well, we don't want to listen. Cobbled together. Whoa. What was that? This is that gun in COD. Let's see. Digital. Going pro. Hummingbird. What is this? The nuclear tourist. Nuclear site open to the public? These are all government sites. Dude, they were just putting it out there. Whoa. That's schematics. Dude. Area 51. Such a weird runway. Los Alamos. That's that's the Bob Lazar one. No pictures for that. Oh my god. It's a cool page. ACDCA. As your planet nears complete industrialization, we will soon have no further need for you. Your relentless individualistic efforts to fabricate our newest remote supercomputing facility by transforming your planet into a global self-aware machine. What is this? To this end, the continued warming of your atmosphere will cause the global circulation system to collapse, resulting in a perpetually winterized northern hemisphere after the frozen polar regions no longer exist as planetary heat sinks. The environmental collapse, in turn, will provide an optimal thermal-regulated operating environment for high-performance computing resources integrated throughout the northern hemisphere, processing the hundreds of yottabytes of digital sensor readings in full hypercomputers we manage in orbit around dozens of singularities across the galaxy. Rest assured, you have no cause to worry. These armed drones will likely enable your planet to autonomously compute for millennia before requiring the first service call. As you can probably see by now, in exchange for the cooperation with our endeavor, the most successful, wealthiest, genetically superior inhabitants among you have been given the spaceflight technology they will need to escape the social chaos most of you will soon face. Perhaps among you will even manage to survive long enough to see the paradoxical result of so many other worlds have seen. The end of your planet's habitability will also signal the end of your planet's total quarantine. But do not mourn the inevitable loss of your biosphere or civilization. Humans rather celebrate those individuals who bring the light of reason into the stars. Got some sacred geometry. This is very weird. Like, I can't tell what's like fan fiction and what's like pseudo fiction and what's real. In the second decade, like, this is so, like, this has, like, 2015. This is crazy, man. 2016? Okay, introduction. In the second decade of the 21st century, as Twitter revelation spread across the Arab world, Western journalists sang a new verse in the old song about the democratizing power of the internet. As Middle East demonstrators posted details of their activities to commercial social media, Western observers, enthralled by the first-person, minute-by-minute updates, only credited Western technology with the protesters' ability to organize mass demonstrations effectively. After the 24-hour news cycle moved on, subsequent retaliatory government crackdowns received far less attention than the pro-democracy demonstrations. The rosy rhetoric about the political empowerment through social media, however, still shaped the perceptions of many Westerners. Dude, this is crazy. He that in the state of society would take away the freedom belonging to those in that society or commonwealth must be supposed to design or take away from them everything else, and so be looked on as in a state of war. John Locke, 1690. Social engineering just hit the mother lode. Its leaders would promptly seek to modify the decentralized educational system. The conflict with which we have to deal with is between two irreconcilable types of social engineering, which have often been described as commercial and the military type of society. The terms were perhaps difficult to see that we face a real alternative, that there is no third possibility. Either both a choice and the risk rest with the individual, or he is relieved of both. Economic disenfranchisement. For them, private wealth was small, the commonwealth great. The law forbade abuse of the common turf and enjoyed the adornment at public expense of the towns and temples with fresh hue marble. 65 to 8 BCE. Well, nothing's changed, Horace. What is this symbol, dude? An African American slave worked at the threat of violence. One can be a slave to one's passions. Some people are liberated, some celebrate past liberations. The typical American works today not at the threat of violence, but of hunger, bankruptcy from treatable illness, trapped in a crippling spiritual vacuum. where at best the meaning of life is a new car every few years, made pleasant enough by the latest fashions in telecommunications. Means of economic servitude, insidious in the scope of their social control and cultural influence, persists to this day in forms comparable to the historic conditions that inspired phrases like wage slavery. These dynamics increasingly enslave the traditional middle class, white collar, a soon to be disposable demographic born of bureaucratic control, and therefore without cultural traditions organized resistance to collective oligarchies. Applied chaos dynamic control association, kinetic computing and non-polynomial time with synchronized phase space operations for symmetric quantum vacuum fluctuations. As an emergent property of the numerical instabilities used to map the momentum of discretized field invariances, the information processing capability of molecules offering a promising candidate for a noise-based technique to formalize in geometric approximations of energetic high-dimensional features through crystal lattices, a 7-dimensional holographic landscape embedded with an excitable medium programmed by crystal lattice formations at ambient conditions provides a system with superimposed quantum and classical states that can be structured so as to engineer, detect, formalize, and evaluate measurements of behaviors of tunneling currents as parameters valued by Archimedean spiral junctions that develop into equivalents of classical transistors constructed as logical machines within a collision-based computing paradigm. This transverse wave boundary can cause spurious oscillations, while mesoscale high-frequency gravitational wave antennae may appear advantageous for signal processing in the time domain. The interdimensional fractal resonances propagated by the excitable medium enable a wave-based computational approach to modeling temporal bifurcation patterns and diffusion gradients as a magnetic signal non-locality, reconstructing the time domain as an electrical field. For strong verification methods with continuum noise-based hyperspace boundary conditions, increasing the output of edges can be employed to satisfy a structural redistribution of spatial oscillations given to Fourier transform of the thermal noise basis. The fundamental frequency oscillations established by the momentum of invariant angular discretizations and the sub-threshold entanglement discoherence of unexcited region resonates with non-local formations to establish an upper bound on relative displacements of linear superpositions. Okay, what? This looks like the actual device here. This looks like the measuring equipment. Why is it so old looking? Something doesn't add up. This is like a modern camera photo. This could be 90s. That for sure is, I don't even know what that is, but that looks like at least early 2000s. This looks like it's from the 1970s. Okay, so this is a modern picture. This, possibly 90s. This, I don't know what this device is. That looks like a 1970s camera picture. Like, look at the coloring. The hues and the exposure and look at the grain on it. Like, this is almost like 3 different timelines to me. You got this hierarchy right here, 314. Dendritic receptive field and sensory cortices are described mathematically as Gabor functions. So are these different dimensions, or are these like time periods? What? It seems like there's 3 different time periods here. Access RS. Holy. What is this? What the hell? This is... oh my god. Integration and differentiation in the inverse stable subordinator. delineates statistically significant interpolations of novel nonlinear boundary conditions which can be viewed as involving the organization and the uppermost level via aperiodic fluctuations in the seventh dimensional substrata. The self-organization of gravitational effects and or selection. Because of supposed failures of actual systems to confirm the orthological constraints, one needs to recall here again that hierarchy is a conceptual construction, an artificial tool, and use of it does not imply that two processes are dependent. Empirical evidence shows that the world manages to be irrelevant in this hierarchy, and there could be a mixture of different kinds of information, relations, variables, constraints of different kinds, attractors, which are not necessarily governed by a single moment in space. So I think what's happening with this website is, it seems like they're talking about dimensional, like, conscious interfaces with multiple dimensions in your own. Orthomodular lattice. The way these dimensions are ordered are on an orthological lattice. So if you see point 1, that would be a clear dimension, whereas you see point 0, that would also be a clear dimension. Those would be poles. But then you have a lattice that binds both of them, and within that are mirrored versions between 0 and 1. White noise analysis has recently become the subject of much interest. First, therefore, we provide existence, generalizable comparison principle. In the state of hierarchy, non-recursive constraints represent a single moment in space. So the triadic system's dynamics represent homeostasis, not change. Large-scale moments contain many small-scale moments. It is often suggested that scalar levels fundamentally signal rate difference rather than component size difference. Next, we study the behavior of solutions for integration and differentiation in relation to fractional operators. The main rules of fractional eigenfunctions allow for the construction of a solution to Gaussian probability distribution. Calculus for bioorthogonal decomposition processes in proteins, biosystems, and even ecosystems tend to result in fractional derivatives in space and time. The result is shown that method 4 is a stoichiometric distribution process given explicitly in a bounded smooth domain, prescribing the flux through a quasi-static normalizing architecture. After the war, in the early months of 1787, a few dozen men gathered in secret behind closed doors in Philadelphia. They carefully designed machines which set in motion meant for them a direct profit of the value of $40 million. In those days, that sum of money was equivalent to the value of all the taxable land in Maryland, Vermont, and Delaware combined, and roughly half of the value of New York. A revolution was underway, a concerted effort to stake out claim for generations to come with a new logic of civil law, a machinery of jurisprudence or social algebra. These men, 1787, built forth their secret design. Their decisions were based on clear quantifiable calculations. That they profited handsomely from their design is beyond doubt. What remains obscure is how and why and what their innovation means, though these answers lie hidden in plain sight. Every American schoolchild has 3 words inevitably described onto their psyche: we the people. We the people are remain that, yes, there were slaves once upon a time and here in the land of the free, who were not really part of the political we, and we the people are told that at some point through just when is usually a little unclear, women struggled for the right to participate in electoral politics. And we the people are told something of the struggle of the civil rights era, which resulted in a society based on equality in the eyes of the law and universal suffrage, as so today. We the people are routinely reminded about our great freedoms. But what is our freedoms exactly? The freedom to do what? Homeland thermodynamics. We plan to discuss the possibility of future work, along with further speculations about what preceded the collision of adjacent three-dimensional worlds in our scenario 2, in principle, develop and acquire the Secretary of the Rand Corporation in 1958. There is more than one collision. This paper limits the natural distributions of macro objects to information about the data and types of employees who are in core areas important to Binlap Ginsburg bilattices. After changing its own many valued canonical trusted relationships across the Pentagon, the Auto Epistemic Analytic Service umbrella derives new facts in the second operating unit of tactical policy development. 8 thermodynamic information theories have been negotiated through a competitive process, with the complete belief revision provided by the statistically trusted relationship operating across the annotated knowledge system environment to derive evaluations efficiently from the reinterpreted thermodynamic parameters. Misinterpretations that this function of entropy that we make possible values flexibility, professionalism, resilient enterprises, and efficiency. Rather, we have no models. The corporation is why we dedicate to our partners, as originally derived, new information to define the fixed point semantics of space limitations. Cartesian projection of the fifth dimensional boundary conditions. Because we have a test object interacting through gravitation with the Big Bang, the instant that the first binary process of the information state can be given the meaning necessary for it to synchronize with the emerging complexity of the different operating units described here from the 1960s, such events may be shown to have occurred quite often in the quantum set theory. As the result of playing host to the evaluation of thermodynamic parameters, the 159 protein H Sapiens database was subjected to a series of clustering analysis, and all of its myriad non-physical chemical forms as a measure of information or abstract communication has no relevance to the evaluation of thermodynamic environments within the native state ensembles of lower order structural elements. We safeguard objectivity. We dedicate our talent and focus our innovation towards shaping the nation's future proteins as prerequisite to effective comparisons between the protein multiplexing schema for holographic boundary conditions projection at infinity. In this case, the psychophysical second and psychophysical third dimensions correspond to the delay experienced by connecting hubs. Nodes as in a network. Information is transmitted one-dimensionally with the teleological component of the thermodynamic information required for the next generation of third dimension at the quantum domain assigned a vector of thermodynamic entropy change and the movement of the macro objects, because such information entropy does not deal with microparticles whose perturbations are related to temperature. Each chaotic parallel distributed processing component possesses the transitive stability properties of our stochastic system parameters. In the mathematics of canonical condensed matter physics, the spin network interdimensional submanifolds are best described as the Ising model-based time evolution ordering mechanism for interacting multi-agent swarms, yielding a discrete time step sequence correlated with specific statistical variations within a generalized Lorentz system in which the submanifolds have been embedded. Physical substratum, though artificial, supports many of the ferromagnetic properties of a conventional nonlinear model for phenomena observed in nature. String theory may treat the result of these physical computations as an irrational number spin value of standard model force carrier testing strategies and problematic outcomes. With this technique using topological equivalent chaotic orbits to control and or organize a system, the necessary conditions for these mechanical and computational functions are derived from chemical changes related to the use of global fluctuations in the conductivity of a crystalline substance whose degree of quantum entanglement can be thought of as a type of neural network for artificial deterministic nonlinear spatio-temporal dynamics hidden in 1991. These topological defects in conventional diabatic generality retention give rise to implementing a physical analog of ORCH or logic model or for control anti-control techniques in an equilibrated adiabatic medium with a simple cybernetic feedback mechanism. Chiefly computational properties spontaneously arise. The novel submicron physiomechanical molecular processing device will accommodate a substantial number of computational applications traditionally reserved for the conventional multi-layer electronics, with fundamental electromechanical properties for gradiated temporal coding schema assigned to an information processing medium with deterministic prediction and fractal dimension coherence statistically analogs to a non-deterministic checksum. Recent studies in condensed matter physics have provided numerous insights in this regard. It is based on quantum gravitational processes and the systematic of signal non-locality corrections for approximate solutions, optimization problems in finite associative memory codings for physical memory systems, and spontaneously self-organized networks of entangled electron pairs with a macro quantum coherent bomb pilot BIT noetic landscape, allowing that fluctuations around the corresponding stage attractors reflect change of probabilistic low-dimensional charge couplings, collectively giving rise to a general error correcting content addressable memory schema. The processing devices will use its normal resting value. In contrast, a micro-quantum theory can be capable of networks with a search problem in non-local entanglement/decoherence but still obey signal locality, and can therefore be hereby marked advertisement in spite of flow computation, therefore be simultaneously stored state vector. But that resonates with gravity, meaning that stochastic mean rate at which action potentials vary, micron quantum gravitational effects are best avoided. So this is set for non-gravity research. Logarithmic shorting of intraphotonomic array activity. Trade relations with homonymy. As a consequence of the orthological subsystem encoding transformations, any given set of nested subalgebra chains will no longer be equivalent to a reconstruction attractor representing a low-dimensional structure common to the nested structure fractional dimension. Yeah, we can go into the books in this in a later video if anyone's interested. I would read them through and then give like points. Let's see, what is this? Pink's attempt to penetrate the orifice. ACDCA document. The white paper prepared by Applied Chaos Dynamics Core Control Association. More than a framework of individual quantum set models, the boundary controls differ in virtual continuous time according to transitional probabilities defined by the algebraic structure of complexity. Measures of periodic perturbations in conformational attractors bifurcate asymptomatically without any fixed polynomial vectors. Measure of large deviations, however, are based on stochastic resonance and remain simplified finite dimensions for monatomic interdimensional scale invariant spectrum analysis. The nonlinear interactions of the entropy conceptual model, methodology, and tools for conducting continuous hydrodynamic flows give a good agreement with complex configurational spaces. Entropy manifolds in complex spaces correspond to the interior of dimension of a mode coupling correlation function. Whether studying the statistics of finite size, underlying grid, or purely quantum holographics derived from stoichiometric transverse scalars. The question of composite quantum cascade models to clarify gauge symmetries, connect with the canonical variables of a Hamiltonian. Superconformal mechanics have been provided for the impulse density by solving infinitely many algebraic nonlinear equations. This is a non-trivial technological problem. There exists hints that these largely unknown structures might be based on possibility that small initial turbulent flows are not performed in the distribution of scalar passive impurities within the... Dude, this stuff is giving me a headache, man. This is really cool. I'd like to make a second video just on the books. Look at these visuals too, man. Like, I want these fractals. Like, as a background or something. Oh my god.